Bobby gets something in the mail, and apparently we broke the law.
Believe it or not, country music's wholesome grin has always had a chipped tooth, and the shine you see under the stage lights is often polish over scuffs that never quite come out. Today, we're not doing museum glass, we're doing fingerprints. We're walking through the alleys behind the hits, where legends stumble, romances go sideways, the law shows up uninvited, and one crime still makes the Grand Ole Opry shiver when the house goes quiet. If your picture of Nashville is all Sunday smiles and perfect manners, you're about to hear the parts of the story that never make the press kit. Start with a spark. Johnny Cash took a camper into California country and learned how fast a mistake can outrun you when the wind wants a story. The fire leapt brush to brush like it had a booking agent, and when the counting was over, the land carried the scars. Not long after, the Opry drew a line on the floor when the man in black, running hot on pills and adrenaline, smashed the footlights in a night of chaos and paid with a band that stung until cooler heads prevailed. The same voice that cracked in church songs carved its way back, proof that repentance and stubbornness sometimes share a tour bus. He wasn't the only one to forget where the rails were. Farron Young, as famous for his cheerful grin as for his temper, crossed a line on stage in 1972 when he spanked a young woman in the crowd and learned fast that a spotlight can turn into a magnifying glass. A fine followed, and a reputation picked up a bruise that never fully faded. Country likes to tell itself it's polite, but a lot of the time it learns manners the hard way. The women who built this music did more than hold harmonies together. They held their ground. Loretta Lynn looked a microphone in the eye and sang about a tiny tablet that changed kitchen table futures, and stations yanked the record like honesty was contagious. She weathered the bands because the truth was bigger than a playlist. Tammy Wynette carried a voice that could slice metal and a life that kept testing the blade, with prescription bottles passed as medicine, emotional bruises that never showed on camera, and danger that seemed to find her address. There was the night she said she was abducted and dumped near the road, a story many doubted as her personal storms grew. There were break-ins and a mysterious fire that left people whispering about cut phone lines and no arrests. And there was the rifle tale she told on George Jones and the denial he fired back, a snapshot of a marriage built on love, talent, and a powder keg of hurt. Feuds didn't stay inside kitchens or buses, they spilled onto shirts and into talk radio. Toby Keith planted his boots in red dirt and fired lyrical shots that echoed loud across arenas. The Chicks, then known as the Dixie Chicks, looked at a war and a president and said exactly what they felt, and Nashville tried to stuff the echo into a shoebox. Stations blacklisted, crowds shouted, CDs met bonfires. Years later, the trio walked back out with heads high and harmonies sharper, and no matter where you stood back then, you could feel how the argument rewired the room. The culture tug-of-war never stopped. Jason Aldean dropped a video that lit comment sections on fire and got yanked from a major TV channel even as streams climbed. Meanwhile, the gate swung back and forth as new voices challenged the guard. Lil Nas X rode a beat that bent the genre until the chart tried to snap it back. The audience said otherwise. Beyoncé two-stepped into the conversation with a song that made line dancers and think pieces move at the same time. Casey Musgraves smiled, told folks to follow their arrow, and reminded the town that hearts don't obey format rules. And the spirit of Loretta's band classic kept humming underneath, proof that country always argues with itself before it grows. For every push, there was an equal pull. When a remix rode Old Town Road into world domination, a chart said it didn't fit and the internet answered louder. When Beyoncé's country cut hit radio, some programmers hesitated, then hesitation looked old overnight. Casey kept racking trophies while outlaw uncles grumbled. Even the Chicks, once banished, found an audience that had outgrown the old grudge. The gatekeepers never fully give up the keys, but lately the crowd keeps finding the side door. While the airwaves argued, the courthouse kept its own rhythm. Morgan Wallen's sprint from Barstool to Headline to chart monster set records and set off sirens. A leaked slur almost flattened his career until his fans turned the boycott into a bonfire of sales. And then came the other nights. An arrest for public intoxication when downtown had more cameras than patients, a driving case in his rear view, and the rooftop incident where a chair flew the way bad ideas do and a booking photo followed. He's not the first to learn that apologies need legs, not microphones, and he won't be the last. Randy Travis, a voice carved out of hickory, hit the absolute bottom in a night so bizarre it reads like folklore. He was found without clothes by the side of the road after a DWI, a mugshot replacing a mantle of awards for a news cycle that felt like a year. He paid, he healed as best he could, and within the sorrow there was a hard lesson no manager can teach. Fame doesn't grant immunity from the ugliest version of yourself. It only gives it better lighting. The law doesn't only knock for a hangover. Gretchen Wilson scored a hit with a defiant stomp, and then found herself in the kind of copyright crosshairs that end with new names on the songwriting credits. Dolly Parton, patron saint of rhinestones and radical kindness, had to stand her ground in a courtroom when a former duet partner sued after she spread her wings. She wrote her way through it, paid what needed paying, mended the relationship, and somehow turned the entire saga into a masterclass in leaving with grace and returning with love. If you want the liner notes, they're there. Gretchen's tangle ended with the Robinson brothers listed as writers, a quiet legal period at the end of a loud song. Dolly's dispute with Porter Wagoner was bruising, but she wrote a goodbye that paid the bill and soothed the sting, and years later they stood together like family that had figured it out. That's the thing about this town's lawsuits. Behind every filing is a melody that belongs to somebody's memory, and the better angels usually nudge the final handshake. Now the part tabloids salivate over romance that does figure eights. Shania Twain watched the floor fall out when her husband and her close friend crossed lines that should have stayed chalked forever. The twist nobody predicted was that in the dust and the grief she chose kindness, found comfort with that friend's ex-husband, and built a new life that confounded every armchair referee. Miranda Lambert married a New York officer with a tangled timeline, and the city that never sleeps decided to watch for every flirty photo like it was a scoreboard. Country fans can spot sincerity better than any detective. They kept listening anyway. Cheating scandals aren't a rare bird in this scene, they're practically a migration. Every generation adds its own chapter, from small-town gossip to front-page flameouts. Some of the stories are rumors that never grow legs, some are confessions disguised as songs, some are just lessons learned too late. If you take anything from the mess, take this. Country doesn't break up with heartbreak. It turns it into fuel and asks the chorus to sing along until everyone gets through the night. Some scandals are less about pillows and more about principles. Roundups love to tally the biggest betrayals, and while plenty are just messy humans making messy choices, a few cases cross into courtrooms over conduct nobody should ever face. The industry has been slower than others to drag every skeleton into daylight, but when allegations of a sensitive nature surface, they hit hard, because the brand wraps itself in family values. Every time the hope is the same, that truth wins fast, that survivors are heard, and that the next tour is safer than the last. Along the rowdier edge, you'll find what the internet calls the jerk files. Tantrums backstage, mic stands thrown like spears, and hotel rooms that looked like rodeo grounds by checkout. Some of it is youth. Some of it is pressure. Some of it is a good person having a very bad day. But sometimes there's a darker stripe. Ego with sharp elbows, entitlement turning kind fans into props. You can call that out without erasing the catalog, because grown-ups can hold two thoughts at once. The song is great and the behavior was not. Substances hang around these stories like cigarette fog in a neon bar. The words don't make the choices softer, but they keep the lights on for the algorithm. So here it is. Plain. Some folks numbed the road with cannabis when the bus hummed too loud. Some flirted with white powder, the kind people nickname coke and pretend is just a rumor in a verse. Others chased a needle more than they chased applause. And the toll shows up in eyes before it shows up in headlines. Tours get long, sleep gets short, doctors get called at midnight, the bill always arrives. And then there are the nights that turn the whole town into a funeral procession. David Stringbean Ackerman and his wife Estelle were murdered in their own home after a performance, a crime so senseless it felt like an attack on the idea of country music itself. The arrests came, the trials came, the years crawled. Every time his name is said from the Opry stage, the applause is tinged with the memory of a gentle man taken by violence that had no business in a world built on jokes, banjos, and kindness. Jerry Lee Lewis deserves his own paragraph because he was a bonfire in human form, a piano player who made upright keys look like a wrestling opponent. His life turned into a traveling headline machine, the kind that made programmers sweat and preachers rewrite sermons on Saturday night, and yet the ticket lines still wrap the block, because electricity is a covenant some people can't break even when they should. That's the paradox the music business keeps relearning. People are complicated, and charisma is a stubborn addiction. You can hear the same paradox in the way Nashville polices its borders. One year, the town swats away outsiders with a smirk. The next year, it throws open the doors because a beat is irresistible. A rapper shows up with a cowboy hook. A pop icon drops a fiddle into a Texas heartbeat. A free spirit writes a chorus that tells folks to live how they want, and suddenly the same people who muttered "not country" are singing along in a pickup they swore would never carry anything but twang. The fence never stays put for long. Of course, not every boundary fight is about sound. Sometimes it's about symbols, a flag in a video, a courthouse as a set, a lyric that feels like a dare to the wrong audience. Artists say art. Critics say context. Fans say play it again. Brands say we'll be over here counting. The result is a lot of loud, sometimes useful noise. Out of that noise, the genre keeps evolving, because nothing clarifies values like an argument you can't mute. When you tally the nights with blue lights, the list looks longer than a tour bus. Some stars have more than one booking photo. Some learned their lesson the first time. Some didn't. A few arrests read like you can't make this up. Public drunkenness with none of the wardrobe, a full moon, and a bad decision catching the same camera. Others are quieter, reckless driving, a fight that went from words to wrists, a hotel damage bill that should have been a charitable donation instead. The only consistent thread is that the camera never blinks. Here's a thing the tabloids miss. Many of those same people do the work. They go to meetings, they make amends, they cancel tours they can't carry sober. They apologize without the word if. They write songs they wish they'd heard 10 years earlier. When country is at its best, it forgives the way a family does, not by pretending the swing never broke, but by fixing it together and keeping an eye on the chains. So what do we make of the love-life labyrinth? We make this. Humans break each other's hearts, and then they keep moving. Shania turned hurt into a hinge and walked through it into another chapter. Miranda chose messy love in daylight and took the internet storm head-on. Other couples traded rings like they were swapping bandmates, and the fans followed along because honesty, even when it's chaotic, is more relatable than a press release. Somewhere in there is a lesson for the rest of us. Admit the mess, then try to be kinder next time. And what about the artists who got banned, boycotted, or benched? Sometimes the punishment fit. Sometimes it felt like a pile-on. Cash came back better. The chicks came back braver. Loretta never really left. The world just caught up. Aldean's controversy hardened his base while turning other listeners away, which is another way of saying America did what America does. Wallen's saga gave every manager a new chapter in the handbook called Crisis You Could Have Avoided. Every one of those arcs rewired the room. Meanwhile, the paperwork keeps humming in the background. Lawsuits over songs settle with checks and new credits. Old partners demand slices of new pies and sometimes get them. The legal language feels bloodless until you realize the songs being argued over walked people down the aisle, or through grief, or back from a ledge in the middle of the night. That's why the fights feel so personal. You're never just arguing about a chorus. You're arguing about the way it kept someone breathing when the room felt airless. If you want one image to carry out of all this, picture the Opry stage right before a tribute. The circle of wood from the Ryman sits under the mic. The band is quiet, just a soft shuffle of feet and the hum of an amp. A name is spoken. Maybe it's String Bean, maybe it's Tammy, maybe it's someone who crashed, paid, and clawed their way back. And the applause that rises isn't gossip, it's gratitude. The point of dragging these stories into the light isn't to sneer at the fallen, it's to honor the cost of the songs that outlived the stumble. So no, Nashville isn't spotless. It never was. It is stubbornly hopeful, aggressively forgiving, occasionally hypocritical, and almost always sincere. It will keep arguing about who belongs, and then it will change its mind when the right hook lands. It will keep banning songs for a minute, and then adding them to rotation when everyone is whistling them anyway. It will keep producing romances that crash into guardrails and marriages that last 50 years without ever showing up in a headline. It will keep growing in public like a kid who refuses to stop singing. Maybe the real scandal is that we ever believed the myth of perfect people in the first place. The music was always written by folks who knew about temptation, who carried scars, who loved hard and failed hard and tried again. That's why the choruses stick. They're not sermons. They're confessions with rhythm. When you remember that, the headlines lose some of their power and the songs gain some of it back. You can separate the art from the artist enough to hold them both to account. Love the tune, expect better choices. Before we dim the lights, take a breath and choose the chapter that surprised you. Was it Cash versus the Forest and Cash versus the Opry? Was it Loretta staring down the censors and winning anyway? Was it Tammy's maze of danger, devotion, fire, and doubt? Was it the Toby versus Chick saga that redrew the map? Was it Aldean's video that found the tripwire? Was it Wallen learning that microphones don't have an off switch in public? Was it Shania's heartbreak becoming a bridge to a better view? Was it Miranda's chaos turning into quiet? Because here's the twist, no scandal sheet prints in bold. Almost every mess we walked past tonight forced something good to grow. Lyrics got braver, radio got broader, security got tighter, contracts got clearer, apologies got more specific, fans got louder about what matters and softer about honest mistakes. And artists, the ones who stuck around, learned that your legacy is a ledger with debits and credits you update every day. You can't erase a bad line, but you can write enough good ones to make the balance sing. So we'll end where every country song ends, with a choice. You can treat these stories like gossip and click away to the next outrage, or you can treat them like mile markers on a road you're also traveling. Even if your stage is a kitchen or a classroom or a night shift, keep your circle tight. Ask for help before you need it. Don't mistake a hit for a halo. Tip your bartenders, your road crews, your writers, and your elders. And when the chorus comes, sing it like you know the cost of the note. That's the only way this town stays honest and keeps singing.